The year is 1971. A brand new family has just moved into an old farmhouse, hoping for a fresh start. But they'll quickly find that some houses come with extra features that go bump in the night. The parent family had no idea what they were getting themselves into when they moved into the farmhouse in Harrisville, Rhode Island. They thought it was a bargain. It looked beautiful from the outside, and it was cheap. But what the family didn't know was that there was more to the house than met the eye. Caroline Perron and her 5 daughters had been living in the house for about a month without any problems. But then weird things started to happen. The first thing that happened was that all of the clocks in the house stopped working. Every single night they would tick and talk and chime, but only until 3:07 a.m. Then they would freeze. The Perron family thought it was odd, but they simply put it down to old clocks. What they didn't know was that these clocks would soon start to affect the rest of their lives. One morning, Carolyn found her 7-year-old daughter, Cindy, with bruises on her legs. She asked the girl about it, but Cindy said she had no idea how they got there. Caroline was shocked. How could someone have hurt her little girl? There were no other people in the house. The other children also claimed that they heard whispers coming from the corners of their rooms at night, but they couldn't make out the voices. Was the house haunted? One night, Carolyn went downstairs for a glass of water. As she passed the front door, she looked out and saw her dog standing stiffly, staring toward the trees outside the house. The animal let out a loud bark. She looked out again, but there was nothing there. Dismissing it as her imagination, she went back to the kitchen to get her glass of water. Little did she know that her dog was afraid of something sinister lurking outside the house. The next morning, Carolyn went to check on the dog. El horror. The animal was dead. She took the dog's body for a post-mortem, and the vet said that he couldn't find anything wrong with the animal. He said it might have been stress or shock that killed the dog, but Caroline knew that something strange was going on in her house. She felt it in her bones, and so she called in the experts, Ed and Lorraine Warren. If you've ever seen the movie The Conjuring, then you probably know who they are. They were real paranormal investigators who helped people across the United States who were experiencing scary things they could unexplain. Lorraine was a clairvoyant, which meant that she could see things others couldn't. Ed was a demonologist, and together they made a pretty good team. When the Warrens arrived at the parent home, Lorraine felt a shiver run down her spine. She was suddenly hit with images in her head, and she saw the ghost of a woman hanging from a tree outside the house. Lorraine told the parents that their house was very haunted, and that if they didn't leave, they might not survive. But the family was already attached to the house, and they didn't want to move. And besides, where else would they go? So Lorraine agreed to investigate further. She spoke to the previous owner of the house, and learned that the woman she saw in her vision was named Beth. According to records, Bathsheba had lived in the house with her son in the 1800s. One day, Bathsheba found out that her son had killed a woman and hidden her body in the cellar of their home. In a fit of rage, she stabbed her own son to death and hung his body from the tree outside. She then cursed the land before ending her own life. Lorraine realized that Bathsheba's spirit was now haunting the house, and that she was the source of all the strange activity. Lorraine told the parents that they needed to get out of the house, but once again, they refused. They didn't want to abandon their home, even if it was haunted. So the investigation continued. Days turned into weeks, and the hauntings became more frequent and violent. Doors slammed shut, floorboards creaked, and the family crucifixes mysteriously fell from the walls. Then, one day, Caroline was sweeping the floor when she was suddenly knocked off her feet. No one was there. She stood up and looked around, but no one was there. The whole house creaked ominously. Then she heard footsteps coming up the stairs. Terrified, she ran away. As time went on, the ghosts became bolder. One night, Caroline was lying in bed when she felt herself being dragged across the room. She screamed, but her cries went unheard. The ghost of Bathsheba was trying to possess her, but Caroline managed to fight it off. The ghost vanished as quickly as it had appeared. That's when the Warrens decided that they had to do something. They were worried that if they didn't intervene, Bathsheba would take over Caroline's body, and she would never be free again. An exorcism was planned, but they had no idea what would happen. The night of the exorcism, everyone gathered in the living room of the house. The air was thick with tension as the Warrens began the ceremony. Suddenly, the house shook violently. All of the lights in the room exploded one by one until they were plunged into darkness. And then they heard Caroline screaming from upstairs. It was clear that Bathsheba had taken control of her body and was fighting against the exorcism. She ran down the stairs and approached the Warrens, her eyes glowing red. "Get out," she hissed. "This house is mine." Lorraine wasn't scared. She knew that she had to be brave. She reached out her hand and said, "Caroline, it's me. I know you're in there. Please come back to me." Suddenly, the room was filled with light. The ghost of Bathsheba vanished, and Caroline collapsed to her knees. The exorcism had worked, but it had taken a lot out of her. Lorraine helped her to her feet, and the two women embraced. Caroline was free from the ghost, but she knew that she wouldn't forget what had happened to her. After the exorcism, the hauntings pretty much stopped. The Perron family was able to live out the remainder of their days in peace. For the Warrens, though, the case of the Perron family would stick with them forever. They had faced many demons in their time as paranormal investigators, but Bathsheba was one of the worst. The mere mention of her name sent shivers down their spines. They had narrowly escaped her wrath, and they knew that they would never forget the terrifying events that had unfolded in the farmhouse. What do you think? Is there such thing as ghosts? Let me know in the comment section below. And if you want to watch another one of my short videos, just click right here. Thanks for watching!